Hey everyone, welcome back to She Blurs podcast. Today's guest is Jeff Bryan. Hi Jeff.
How you doing?
Thank you for coming on my show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
My name is Jeff. Uh, I'm a musician, Jeffrey Bryan. I keep playing keyboards. What do you want to know more like who I play for and what I do, or do you want to know more about? Not really sure. How do you want to do it?
Yeah, you can mention all of it. I'm gonna ask you
Well,
questions about it.
let me see. Well, I'm a keyboard player. I've been playing forever. From Los Angeles. I currently am playing for the band Survivor, and I've had sort of a long career of just playing keyboards and singing and performing in different bands throughout the years, and did some acting when I was a kid as well. So, there's a bunch of stuff that I have in my history that's brought me to this.
Yeah, because I was reading your bio. Your wife emailed me and she was telling me a few things about you, and my friend, he knew who you were. He was like, "Oh, I know him," and I'm like, "Yeah."
Oh, cool.
So, what did you like most about being on the film The Karate Kid?
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't mention that. I was in the Karate Kid. Okay, there, I mentioned it. Um, the Karate Kid was, I was 18, and it wasn't the first movie I was in. I was in another movie too, but that was. I guess the question is, your question to me was, how did I like it?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was. It was. I don't know. It's hard. I mean, looking back, you can say it was a great experience. At the time, it was just another job. You know, just another. I went on hundreds of interviews and casting calls and things like that, and so it wasn't really a huge part. It was supposed to be bigger than it ended up being, but they cut a lot of lines out from all the extra characters that were in the film, so it ended up being a lot of sitting around for 6 months. but
Wow.
but yeah, but so I mean, for an 18-year-old that wants to work, it was a little frustrating, but it was still a great experience. Obviously, at the time, Ralph Macchio, he was just barely, he did Outsiders, so it wasn't like there was a whole bunch of stars in the movie. It was a whole bunch of like unknown actors, outside of mine, people that were on their way up and getting more publicity. But it was really the Karate Kid that launched a lot of careers, you know.
So,
At the time. Go ahead. I'm sorry. No.
you okay? What inspired you to become a musician?
What inspired me? Wow. Well, I mean, a lot of things inspire you to be creative,
Yeah.
and so I mean, I probably would have been creative in some way or another, whether it had been, writing music or, I don't know. Music was always in my life, even though my parents weren't necessarily musically inclined. I just grew up with a soundtrack of albums, everything from the Beatles to Eagles to Supertramp to Stevie Wonder. I mean, you just name it. I had a ton of music in my life. It was just part of my everyday existence, and I was like, I like how that made me feel to try to communicate in that way. So I developed that, and it just kept going and going and going. I mean, I originally was a singer. I wasn't a keyboard player or a guitar player. I was interested in singing and songwriting.
Oh,
That
nice.
was that was really the reason why I got into music, was so that I could do those things. Keyboards didn't come for a while. Even though
Wow.
even though I played keyboards or piano, I didn't really take it as a career seriously. I didn't really consider myself a keyboard player until many years later, when I realized I had skills that I could utilize, and I enjoyed it that much. So, it was sort of a bonus. It didn't wasn't really something that I had planned on doing.
So, how has it impacted your life since you started playing a lot more?
Well, I mean, playing a lot more. We're talking 30 years ago. So I would say it's impacted my life. It is my life. You know, it's what I've always done. So it's not really so much that it's, I mean, when you say impacted, you know, you kind of, it implies it's new. You know, like
Uh,
this came into your life and then suddenly changed things. It's sort of grown into my, you know, it's part of my fiber of my living. So, you know, it's what I do. Just like, um, you know, you don't, you know, wake up one morning and become a lawyer. You know, you go to school, you train, you study, and it's the same thing with music. You know, it's a life of a lifelong pursuit of that art form of, you know, learning how to communicate in music.
that's awesome. So, are you working on any like new projects as a musician?
You know, because of COVID and stuff, you know, I'm sure a lot of us have had an opportunity to sort of sit down and finish that song that never got written kind of thing. And so, yeah, last year I recorded a whole bunch of new songs that I had been toying around with for years and just decided to finish them, and I put them online. So they're on Spotify and places. Um, Most of what I do keyboard wise is usually playing for other people.
Uh,
So this was kind of nice I mean, it was nice in the sense that it was sort of a forced opportunity to just focus on what I do, you know, my music. So
yeah.
I did that last year, and you know, so that was something new.
So, can you tell our listeners about like one of your best performances and how did it make you feel?
Um, you know, it's I've performed on, you know, so many times. I mean, it's hard to just pick one. Um, it depends on what part of the conversation. I mean, like if you're talking about, you know, the most exhilarating time on stage, you know, sometimes it's with a small group of people. It depends on the energy and what's going on with the people you're on stage with. And then sometimes it's just because there's so many people in the audience that that energy you can feel.
Mhm.
So I think when I was really young, probably the most strangest because it was so new was doing a live TV show, singing live. I did the Merv Griffin show back in back in the 80s, and you know, I hadn't really had a lot of experience at that point. I think I was 16 or something, and I was singing on live national television. um, and so I think that will always stick in my mind. I mean, it's usually the first times that are very you know, indelible in your mind. You know, they leave a, because it's the first time. So,
Yeah,
you know.
definitely. So, let me ask you a question outside of the questions I was going to ask you. Like, do you ever get nervous singing in front of all of those people? Like, I know I would be like seeing a million faces, and you're like,
Well, yeah, but I have a good answer for that, I think. I hope so. I hope you get nervous because, you know, if you don't get nervous, you shouldn't go on stage. There's a way to control the nervous energy and turn it into something really good, you know. And that's the art form. That's how you mean, if you're not nervous, there's something wrong. You know, of course, you know, maybe you don't have a pulse. I don't know. But, you know, there's a difference between being nervous and being scared. And nerves is just your body telling you that, you know, be prepared for something. And how you deal with that, you can turn it into fear or you can turn it into, you know, whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. And so, you know, as a performer, you learn to harness that nervous energy into something great, hopefully. And so no, I mean, if you mean, do I get scared? No. But do I get nervous? Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
because I yeah, I've interviewed like maybe 4 or 5 famous people, and I always get nervous when I do, and I start sweating, and I'm like rushing through the interview, and I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah,
hopefully
but
I
I
don't
bet
say something stupid.
but I bet at the end of the day, at the end of the I mean at the end of the interview, you probably do a great job. Because
Yeah.
if it's when you let the nervous energy um, get in the way of what you're trying to accomplish, if you're not using the energy in a good way and know how to kind of navigate it, then you have a problem. So it's okay to feel that. I mean, to be honest, I think I'd be very worried if I just didn't. Because if you're not nervous, it's almost like you don't care.
Yeah.
Because if you care, then things matter, and all of a sudden that nervous energy is going to come in. If you don't care, then there's nothing to be nervous about, right? You don't care. And then what kind of performance or what kind of interview would that be if you didn't care? So it's good to have it. It's good to have nervous energy.
So, what advice would you give our listeners who want to pursue a successful career like yourself?
I think, I don't want to sound cliche, but honestly, sometimes the most obvious things are the hardest. It just be yourself, especially with in this era with the internet and everybody and their grandma online now. It's very hard to develop your own. I would assume that if you're pretty young and getting started, it's easy to kind of mimic other people and kind of try to do this or do that. But it's really important to learn who you are and figure out what it is that you do best or can do, or want to pursue. And that takes a little bit of introspection. It takes a little bit of time. And some people are patient and they figure it out. And some people just want to stick something online,
Yeah.
So I think it's important to slow down, relax, figure out why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think if you have a good handle on why you're doing it, and really the reasons are only important to you. It doesn't matter what those reasons are, as long as they're important to you and they matter to you, and you're honest with yourself about it. I'd say pursue it.
Definitely. Because I was telling my grandma when I first started podcasting, I was like, Grandma, I'm really nervous to interview people, live streaming. And she was like, well, if you really want to do it, you'll do it. And I'm like, yeah,
Exactly.
you're right.
Yeah. If the fear doesn't outweigh your desire, if your desire outweighs the fear, then you won't. Then you'll learn how to harness the energy, productively.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I want to thank you so much, Jeff, for coming on my show today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. That was quick. That's the
Yeah,
shortest interview I ever did.
usually I do 15 minutes because I don't want to take up a lot of people's time, interviewing them for an hour and 2 hours. I'm like, yeah, I'll just
Yeah.
stop at 15.
Yeah. I guess so. I guess it's easy for people to get a little bit of information quickly.
You have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Hey everyone, I want to thank you all so much for listening to my interview with Jeffrey Bryan. Brian. So if you want to see what he's up to, see what he's doing with the band Survivor and working on his new music or in his own music, then you can go to his website. I've linked it below. It's jeffreybryanmusic.com. So I hope y'all have a great day and thank you all so much for listening to my podcast.